I came out to LA actually to do another video with a big YouTuber, and I was thinking of different ideas that could be interesting to do. And I'm into cars, so I was like, what can I do with cars? I can't afford a cannonball run right now, and I just don't have the time to prep for that. But I am interested in doing 50 states and documenting that. And I started thinking about all the people that I've met who would want to be a part of this, because I can't do this by myself. So I called Peter and I let him know about, hey, I'm interested in doing 50 states. Is that something you would partake in?
And he just straight up says, hey, do you want to do this video where we try to travel all 50 states in like 10 days? That's what it was. Because he was genuinely curious about how fast that would be possible. So he was like, I could probably do it in 10 days. And that's just a ballpark estimate from him. And this just was so random. I'm like, I mean, that's like the perfect video. Why not? Like instantly I was like, hell yeah, you know what I mean? We booked the flights. We planned an entire route. We have everything set. We had 12 flights altogether because the three of us times 4 because to the destination, and then we have to take a flight to Alaska, flight to Hawaii, then flight back home from Hawaii. We had everything booked, lots of money. And of course, this is the worst time to do it because the gas prices are hiked up, like everything. It actually affected the plane tickets more than actual gas on the trip. We were gonna start in Boston. That's where we would fly into. We were actually gonna start in Vermont. As I'm on the plane, I get a text from this guy. We're in a group chat and he's like, hey, I don't know if you saw this, but the record is not 7 days. It's like 5 days.
I come up on this video and an article about it that somebody actually set the world record, and it's not 6 days and 22 hours. It is less. So I text Peter while I'm on the plane. He's getting ready to get on the plane, and we're just trying to figure things out. And we're like, okay, well, when we get to Boston, we're gonna have to figure this out because this completely changes the whole dynamic. We planned the specific time we're gonna leave. We have everything. This video at this point is like $9,000 already because we have rental cars and travel, and gas is outrageously expensive. So we get there, well, everybody is already sleep deprived because everyone is traveling and we're kind of excited, can't sleep and things of that nature. We postponed it a day because we have to leave at 2:30. While we didn't really plan to avoid traffic in major cities, we did plan for the time we have to leave because we were working backwards from the flights to Alaska and Hawaii. First off, we rented a car, right? I know that by the time we returned that car 5 days later, that car probably depreciated 6x of whatever we paid for that time period. We returned the car, it was 7,400 miles back more 5 days later. And they didn't know if it was accurate, and it 100% was. It was a little overdue on the oil change, about 50%, but obviously no time to do oil changes. Yeah, so we weren't looking to break the lower 48 record. We needed to make sure that we have the proper time for flights. We were looking to break the 50 states record, and the lower 48 was 86 hours, which is just going to put too much stress, and we wouldn't be able to stop and make this into an ultimate 50-state trip. We didn't really get to choose the car. All we knew that we were going to get is some sort of compact SUV because we wanted something that would comfortably house 3 people in the vehicle, plus all of our camera gear and the food that we bring in with us. But we didn't know what we were going to get. We were just hoping there was going to be something new that's not going to break down on us. And we got this 2022 Ford Escape, which isn't a bad car by any measure, but it didn't have any spare tires, nor did it have like a tire repair kit, nothing of that sort. So that also put some pressure on it because we just had no room for a flat tire, no room for any sort of error. We bought this little patch kit for like $3 at a gas station just so that we can have some sort of ability to repair something. The one thing that we didn't think was our already depleted of any sort of like human activity brain is that there's no way we can put air in the tire even if we patch it because we didn't have a pump with us. And that only hit us about 2 days later in Hawaii. We obviously have cameras with GPS stamps and timestamps and all of that. We also used apps that track in the background on your phone. So we had QuickBooks, which is what we use for our all the financial side of things for YouTube videos, and it tracks mileage. And I think it was like MileIQ that we used. So we used those for our verification strategy. And then we also used a map to kind of map out exactly where we need to be. I don't remember which website we used, but it allowed us to plot over 50 points on the map. Because apparently in Google Maps, you can't plot a lot of mapping points. And we found this mapping website that allowed us to do that and show us the time where we're supposed to be at a particular point in time. And that's how we tracked Are we ahead of time? Are we behind on time? Where are we supposed to be right now? We start at 2:30. We drive out. It's about an hour and a half to Maine, which is like the northest destination up there, and then we go straight down to Florida. We're just driving, cruising. We decided that we want to stop by in Times Square in New York because that is on the way. It was 20 minutes in Times Square, but I only added 15 minutes to our trip because the traffic was so outrageous that it was just more beneficial for us to just stop. I drive all the way to West Virginia, and I just don't want to deal with West Virginia. I have to take off my radar detector. I have to just kind of like relax, and there are cops everywhere. So I'm like, you know what? I am too tired. I am not dealing with this. Hey, Peter, you want to wake up and take over? And I wake up right around like Georgia. We stop by at the Varsity, get a little meal, meet up with friends, and then just move on. We need to touch a piece of Florida, and going through Florida would be an extra 2 hours. So we go to this area where it's literally a dirt road that ends on the border of Florida. So you either have to get out of the car and walk over, or you have to get off the road and drive it into the ditch for it to count that you actually physically entered into the state of Florida. So in my nature, I drove off the road, drove it into the ditch, counted the area, and then we left.
So basically on the trip, we were supposed to take 8-hour shifts. So we would never, like, obviously we'd never stop to sleep or anything. We're all gonna have to sleep in the car. And I was supposed to drive during the day. So for the first shift of the day, for like 2:30 to 10:30, I drove all 8 hours. And I was like, okay, great. Like after this, I can go to sleep. So I'm asleep at 10:30. So I'm like, well, technically I shouldn't have to drive for another 16 hours, right? You know, one guy makes it through the night. The other person is trying to keep him awake. And then I get woken up at like 3:30. I'm like, oh, this is already going wrong. There's no way that both of you guys are too tired to drive within like 5 hours. Like, this is gonna be bad. And I had to just drive. I drove throughout the night, and I was like, this is just the start of this. I knew that there was something that was gonna go wrong with the sleeping because no one was sleeping during the day. That was the second day in a row where none of us could get it together and sleep during the day. And the nights were getting worse and worse and worse.
2 days in, the gas prices went up like 50 cents. We are driving up at this point towards Chicago, and it's already all over the place. I mean, the smell in the car is outrageous. We decided that ultimately at the end of the day, we have to stop somewhere and take a shower because I got a headache. It got bad. So we found a gym on the way that was kind of like, okay, we will hop in, take a quick shower, and then hop out. And that was the only shower we took for the trip because that took just way too much time. Driving through North Dakota is the most painful experience driving I've ever had. I've hit 50 states before for work. I did a lot of traveling for work before, but I never had to drive straight shot through North Dakota, and there's absolutely nothing there. Allegedly, there was some minor speeding involved. I may or may not have received a speeding citation for alleged speeding violation. It was in Arizona, though, on Native American land. So apparently, and I didn't know this, you're not getting any points that don't report it. It's $120. And we're kind of arguing, like, because I set cruise control to 13 miles over. I'm like, nobody's pulling me over for 13. I get pulled over. Hey, you're doing 19 miles over. Like, this doesn't sound right. So maybe the car speedometer wasn't reading it right. But at the moment they told me, hey, this doesn't report anywhere and it's $120, I'm like, let me just sign and I'll be on my way.
We didn't really time it that well in terms of, oh, like we want to make sure we go through cities in the middle of the night because there were so many different cities. And also the way we had to plan the last part of the trip was there is only one direct flight from Alaska to Hawaii and basically had to work backwards from there. And our goal was to stay in Alaska for the shortest amount of time possible. So I'm pretty sure we were only there for about 90 minutes. Because of that, we really didn't have a choice in terms of timing for anything else. So we ended up driving through a lot of cities during rush hour, but it was like the only way to go. We just had to make sure that not only the route was as efficient as possible, but that we were making very good time in terms of all the stops that we were making. So basically, at this point, we are 32 states in, and we're behind maybe 4 or 5 hours. And we're kind of lagging behind this entire time. We haven't caught up much. I'm trying to figure out, like, what do we have to do to just make up for this? We realized just we have to take more and more and more precautions if we still want to be able to make this and still want to be able to make the stops. And it started with not going through a drive-through. Literally the 15, 20 minutes that it would take waiting, we couldn't afford that. So we would have to either just eat gas station food, which we did the majority of the time, or we would just order food of any restaurant that was right off the highway and just try to pick it up and grab and go. At this point, we had to start taking every minute out of every little spot that we could get. So in terms of shooting stuff, if I wanted to hop out and shoot this, it would have to be at the same time as this person had to use the bathroom. If someone had to use the bathroom, we're waiting until like at least two of us do, or until we run out of gas. We're trying to get the gas station stops down to like 5 minutes. It's much different from a cannonball because you have a like modded car, you have big fuel tanks. This is just a rental car. We have nothing going for us with something like this. We just have to make do with what literally an average car would be. We started catching up. So Abdul took us into the Grand Canyon, and this was a detour. This was like our biggest detour, but I've always wanted to see the Grand Canyon. I had to. It was gonna be a sunrise. It was gonna be great. He pulls into the Grand Canyon right at the entrance. It's closed because it's still like 4 a.m. because the sun rose at 5. And he stops for 1 minute, and I'm like, okay, let me call my dad because I know he's went here. Like, I want to know like where he went. And legitimately within 1 minute, I hear him start snoring. Like, this is in the middle of the road. We just stopped, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how is this possible? And then like, of course, I had to take over the driving. And as I'm driving super slow because I'm seeing like all these animals on the side. I'm like, please just don't hit the car. Like, that's all we like don't want.
We have to make sure that we get the sunset at the Salt Flats. So all of a sudden, our 45 minutes ahead turns into we are an hour behind, and we have to make up this time as well, which we did, and the Salt Flats were fun. Peter got to drive the car at 96 miles an hour, but with my ego, I couldn't allow that to be the highest speed we hit on the Salt Flats, so I had to make sure it went triple digits. A little 2022 Ford Escape was struggling, but it did make it to 101 miles an hour. Allegedly, the top speed is 120, but I wouldn't know that.
Basically, the sun sets, we're in Utah. We were like, okay, we have to make it to the airport at about 8 a.m. We had basically 13 hours left. We had like a 12-hour drive. So we were like, okay, we got this. Nothing can go wrong. There's not one thing. And I think we had to take 4 or 5 shifts that night. It was getting really bad. Like it was going from in the days, like people could drive for like 6-8 hours straight, and then they would get tired and we would sleep. At this point, we're all like fractions of ourselves. We're just trying to drive, and that's it, and just get enough mental to drive, you know? We're in Washington now. We encounter snow. It's pushing right at 32 degrees in the mountains. I was driving like pretty slow at this point. It was raining, kind of / snowing. Obviously, there's snow all around us. It was bad weather, but we made the flights in time. But that was just the first part. This was completely out of our control at this point. So if any of the flights got delayed, we were screwed because basically we worked backwards, right? As soon as that plane touches down is when we can basically call the record. We're on the plane. It was really cool. Like we were talking to one of the guys and just the flight attendants hearing us because everyone's like really intrigued. Like they see our cameras, like, what are you doing? Admittedly, we didn't smell the best at that point. At that point, we ended up taking a shower in maybe 3 or 4 days. The flight attendant overhears us and she's like, oh, that's so cool. You guys are actually about to break this record. And actually on both of the flights, they ended up announcing that like we were breaking it. Like when we landed or somewhere around there, I thought it was really cool. I remember as soon as the plane lands, stopped the timer, said 133 hours and 10 minutes. So we broke it by over 3 hours and got to stop and see all these things and got a really cool video. As soon as it lands, the plane announces, it's just like the perfect ending. And I just couldn't, probably the best experience I've had, honestly.
Well, who doesn't want to travel to 50 states in their lifetime? An opportunity like this doesn't come along very often, especially with our busy schedules. I mean, we make YouTube videos for a living, so it's a lot of very hectic planning with different things, and having a whole week blocked out to go and just drive to make a video doesn't really come along very often. But overall, I mean, it was a good experience. I never got to see Grand Canyon until just now in this trip. Even though I've been to every single state, I just never made the time to go and look at different national parks and things like that. Would I do it again? 100%. And at the end of the day, it ended up being like $15,000, which is a lot of money for just a 5-day trip.
Who wants a free carbon fiber ring? Well, right now, Patrick Adair Designs is giving away a free carbon fiber ring with any purchase if you use the code VINwikiCF at checkout on their website. You can find them at the link in the description below. You can also follow along on Patrick Adair's YouTube channel. You've seen him here telling car stories, but over there, he documents his journey in entrepreneurism and some of the amazing things they do to create rings out of the most interesting materials from Earth and from space. So check them out now and thank them for their support of VINwiki.